Survival rifles aren't just toys for plinking cans, they're lifelines when space weight and budget really matter. Hidden in plain sight are affordable rimfires that don't just get the job done, they redefine what cheap can mean in a survival scenario. The catch: most shooters pass them by without realizing the kind of smart engineering and rugged value they bring to the table. Which rifles under $300 are quietly proving themselves as indispensable tools for preppers, hunters, and everyday shooters alike. In this video, we'll talk about the forgotten bolt actions that punch above their class, the semi-autos that refuse to quit, the packable designs that vanish into a backpack, and the rifles that can be had for little more than a grocery run. Stick around so you know which ones might belong in your own survival kit. Winchester rolled the Wildcat out in 2019 as a clean-sheet rimfire that doesn't just chase the Ruger 1022, it solves a few nagging problems most budget 22s force you to live with. The party trick is the red button takedown that lets the entire action drop free without tools. Cleaning from the breech becomes normal practice instead of a chore. The crown stays safe and the little Allen wrenches you usually lose are tucked into the lower, so the rifle carries its own toolkit. The rifle is striker-fired, unusual in rimfires where hammers rule, and the lower receiver stores those tools while the upper keeps weight to a whisper. The Wildcat ships with a 10-round magazine that has a load assist wheel and a last-round bolt hold open, but the real news for preppers is magazine commonality with Ruger 1022 mags, including BX25s. That means caches and range bags can stay simple across platforms. The gun is light at roughly 4 pounds, yet handles like a grown-up rifle thanks to a vertical-ish grip, ambidextrous mag releases, and a positive bolt release button. Winchester gives you peep sights from the factory, a smart move that helps new shooters hit more often than with buckhorns, and an optics rail if you want a dot or glass. Field reports with bulk ammo show honest 1-inch to 1¼ inch groups at 50 yards, which is plenty for squirrels, rabbits, and tin cans. Polymer furniture shrugs off rain and scuffs so you won't baby it in the truck or the pack. MSRP runs about $299 to $369 depending on finish and suppressor-ready options, and street pricing dips hard. Deals have hit $205.49. Eugene Stoner designed the AR-7 in 1959 for pilots who might have to punch out over wild country. That origin story still shapes what the Henry version does best: ride along quietly until the day it needs to put meat in the pot. The whole rifle breaks down in seconds without tools, and everything barrel receiver magazine stows inside the water-resistant stock. It even floats if it goes overboard. Henry didn't just revive an icon, they fixed what owners complained about in earlier generations. A metal alignment stud replaces the old plastic part so the barrel locks up consistently, magazines feed better, and the bolt handle is now user-friendly. Assembled, the AR-7 weighs about 3½ pounds and runs with an 8-round magazine, though most folks carry extras in the stock. The peep rear and bright front blade make sense for small game distances, and the simple blowback action digests high-velocity .22 LR well. That pack up and forget about it. Design is the appeal. It lives in a boat locker, truck storage bin, or bug-out bag, and it asks so little that it's easy to keep one on standby. Pop culture gave it a James Bond cameo, but the real charm is much more practical, featherweight ammo, easy maintenance, and a rifle that is ready after months of riding along. MSRP is around $350 depending on the finish. Black and true timber patterns are common, and street prices tend to land well below that, with real-world tags as low as $273.49. Savage's humble 64 F traces its roots to the old Guild predecessors, and the 954 then settles into its own lane as the quiet achiever of budget semi-autos. It's a straight blowback 10-shot .22 that just works especially with high-velocity loads. Nobody buys a 64F for aftermarket glitz. People buy them because they're cheap, light, and honest about what they do: punch paper, pick off pests, train new shooters, and turn bulk boxes into grins. The 21-inch barrel and 1/16 twist give you predictable results with common loads, and the synthetic stock can ride in a truck all year without guilt. The receiver's grooved for rings, so a small scope drops right on when eyes aren't loving irons. Owners call it the underdog rimfire. Compared to a 1022, you don't get the same ocean of parts, but you do get respectable groups. 2 inches at 50 yards is normal with decent bulk ammo, and better loads often tighten that up. Reliability favors hotter rounds. Standard velocity can be finicky, which is good intel when you're stocking ammo for a rifle meant to be ready. The controls are straightforward. The manual safety is where you expect it. and the magazines are easy to find. The 64F's superpower is price. MSRP hovers around $169. Street prices dive even lower, $144.49. Here's where bolt-action discipline meets budget reality. The Mark II family is Savage's Rimfire backbone, and the F-trim gives you the essentials: a light synthetic stock, a 21-inch sporter barrel, and the AccuTrigger that makes small targets feel bigger than they are. The bolt gun gives away speed to the semi-autos on this list, but it pays you back with consistency and control, especially when you slow down and make each shot count. When the job is a squirrel's head at 40 yards, the Mark II makes it feel routine. The FVSR variant earns fans for the short, heavy threaded barrel. If you run a can, that setup is a neat little hunting rig, but the basic F more than earns its keep on price and performance. Accuracy is the calling card. The rifles are button-rifled and generally shoot 1 to 1.5 inches at 50 yards with decent ammo. Some loads and some rifles dip under that at longer distance. The magazines come in 5 and 10-round flavors, and the actions live long, simple lives with light lube and the occasional cleaning. While this list leans toward rifles that can live in a cache or behind a truck seat, the Mark II adds a dimension you feel the first time you stretch to 60 or 70 yards and still thread shots. MSRP ranges roughly $279 to $389 depending on trim and barrel, but real-world prices tell the story. A plain Mark II F often sits around $250 to $300, and the FVSR can be had for about $257.49 when the stars align. The Plinkster is the thrift store t-shirt of Rimfire's cheap, comfortable, and always there when you need a knockaround option. Built by CBC in Brazil and brought in by Mossberg, it's the mechanical twin to the Rossi RS22 with a different outfit. Lightweight, right at about 4 pounds, makes it friendly for small shooters, and a breeze to carry on a walkabout pest run. The fiber optic sights are bright in daylight, the 10-round mags are easy to load, and the receiver takes common 3 8-inch rings for a basic optic. Plenty of folks bought their first one on a Black Friday sale and never felt the need to upgrade. The Plinkster does have a personality. Some rifles run forever, others prefer certain ammo, and want a little patience with magazine fit and feed lips. Disassembly isn't as quick as a 1022 or Wildcat. You'll drift pins, mine the springs, and take your time. That's fine when the rifle's role is recreational shooting training and small game work where weight and price matter more than instant takedown. It goes where you go without drama, and if it gets dinged, nobody's crying. MSRP usually sits around $160 or $180, and street prices are routinely under that, $143.99, making it one of the most affordable rimfire survival rifles on the market. The Little Badger looks like someone built a rifle from a Meccano kit and a good barrel, and that's the charm. It's a single-shot break-action skeleton that folds in half to about 16.5 inches overall, weighs around 3 pounds, and tucks into spaces where most rifles won't. The wire stock holds a dozen loose rounds on a plastic carrier. The barrel comes threaded half by 28, and Chiappa gives you rails along the forend and a set of M1-style peep sights. There's no manual safety, just a half-cock hammer notch. The trigger is stiff but short, and the extractor flicks empties out reliably enough that the extra time you spend loading feels like a feature when you're teaching fundamentals or stretching ammo. Plenty of survival rifles talk about portability. The Little Badger lives there. It disappears in a day pack, sits at the bottom of a tote with a compact fishing kit, or rides under a truck seat as a just-in-case tool. With a Can 22 LR, becomes backyard quiet pest control. With 22 WMR or .17 HMR, you gain reach for wary varmints across a pasture. It's not fast, it's not fancy, and that's exactly why it belongs on this list. Keeping a rifle this simple running is almost trivial, and making deliberate shots with a single shot builds discipline that carries over to everything else you shoot. MSRP is about $216, and the real-world tags tend to land between $170 and $210, with plenty of sightings at $200.49. If you want AR-15 ergonomics on 22 LR pennies, the 715T gives you that muscle memory without the 556 grocery bill. Under the tactical costume is the same CBC action you saw on the Plinkster. Mossberg wraps it in AR pattern furniture, adds a flat top rail for optics, and usually ships it with a 25-round magazine where legal. The stock adjusts through 6 positions length of pull fits kids and adults, and the gun tips the scale around 5.5 pounds. The charging handle on the carry handle version is mostly for show. The actual bolt handle lives on the side like the Plinkster's. The flat top avoids the pretend handle and gives you a clean rail for red dots or compact scopes, which plays nicely with the rifle's role as a trainer. For preppers and budget-minded shooters who run a centerfire AR, the 715T creates a shared control scheme. Safety where you expect it, mag changes that feel right, stock welds that match your go-to carbine. Run drills in the backyard without bruising your wallet, then translate that work to the real thing when you hit the range. Accuracy is typical .22 semi-auto fare, small game good with ammo it likes, and reliability follows the Plinkster pattern. Some rifles eat anything, some prefer certain rounds. Once you find the load, the gun hums. MSRP sits at $406, which sounds rich until you remember almost nobody pays that. The street reality is usually $210 or $260, and seeing $213.49 is not rare. This is the value king of modern .22 semi-autos, and it wears the crown like it was born with it. The RS22 shares its CBC action with the Plinkster, but dresses it in a Monte Carlo stock and a clean sight picture that works for kids and grown-ups alike. It weighs roughly 4 pounds, runs a 10-round mag, and locks the bolt open on empty, a small detail that makes the range experience smoother and safer, especially when you're coaching new shooters. The fiber optic sights are the right kind of loud, a bright front post that jumps into focus, and a fully adjustable rear that lets you zero at realistic small game distances. Add an optic later with simple dovetail rings, the receiver is ready. The RS22 does the small things right. The bolt handle is easy to grab, the synthetic stock isn't precious, and the rifle points quickly without feeling toyish. It's not trying to be a 1022 clone, though. The family resemblance to older Marlin Rimfires shows up in how it balances and how it shoots. Parts and magazines interchange with the Plinkster, which simplifies life when you own both or are buying spares. Out on a walk for squirrels, the rifle carries like nothing, and that makes longer days more productive because you're not tempted to set it down every 100 yards. When the kids want to run a brick of ammo on a Saturday, you can say yes without budgeting for it. Rossi's price strategy sealed this rifle's reputation. MSRP lists at $189.99. Retail tags in the wild hover around $130 or $160 with buds and other shops often posting it in the mid-150s and rare sales dropping to 2 digits. At those numbers, it becomes easy to buy a pair, one for the ranch and one for the cabin, or to keep a spare magazine set and an optic waiting in the box. And that's a wrap. Which rifle on the list would you trust to carry cash or hand to a new shooter? Do you own one of them? Share your stories in the comments, then hit like, share, subscribe, and tap the bell for more.